We are going to deal with the development of the brainstem. We are going to talk about the development of the diencephalon, and then we are going to talk about the development of the tenencephalon or the prosencephalon. So, if you remember, we finished last time when we were talking about the development of the nervous system. So when we finished last time with the development of the nervous system, we said that there are three vesicles in the cranial part of the neural tube. Yes. And these three vesicles, which we call them prosencephalon, and then we said mesencephalon and rhombencephalon. So there are three main vesicles. One is the prosencephalon, then the mesencephalon, and the last one which you see here is the rhombencephalon. These are the three vesicles which are going to give rise to the major part of the brain, the cerebrum and the parts of the brainstem. We also said that there are flexures in the neural tube. So neural tube is not going to remain straight. It was initially straight. It has a cranial end and it's at a caudal end, and you have three vesicles: the prosencephalon, the mesencephalon, and the rhombencephalon. But then, as the brain is going to expand, there is a cervical flexure, there is a pontine flexure which you see here. So there is a cervical flexure which you are seeing here, and then there is a pontine flexure which you are seeing here. So these flexures in the brain, in the neural tube, are going to be made so as it is going to grow. Now, in the spinal cord, we talked about that there is an alar plate and there is a basal plate. The basal plate was in front, the alar plate was behind. The basal plate was responsible for motor neurons, and the alar plate was responsible for the sensory neurons. And then you have the mental layer around it and the marginal layer around the mental layer. So the white matter is going to be, as the neurons are going to develop processes, they are going to extend into the mental and marginal layer. So that will result in the formation of the white matter. So the gray matter was in the center, formed by the basal plate and the alar plate. The basal plates were the motor and the alar plates were the sensory, and the white matter came out in the mental and the marginal layers, which are the processes of these neurons. And we said the central cavity of the neural tube, in the case of the spinal cord, was lined by the neuroepithelial cells, and these neuroepithelial cells are going to give rise to different types of neurons and glial cells, which are going to come out from the neuroepithelial cells, and they are going to migrate. Now, in terms of the brain, especially the part which we call as the brainstem, the mesencephalon and the rhombencephalon, they also would have basal and alar plates. But the orientation of the basal and alar plates would not be like anterior and posterior. The basal and alar plates would be, the basal plates would be lining in the midline, and the alar plates would be lining on the lateral side. So you would still see the basal and the alar plates in the rhombencephalon and mesencephalon, while in prosencephalon, the alar plates would be bigger in size and the basal plates will disappear. So the important thing which you need to understand is that you still would find the basal and alar plates in the rhombencephalon and mesencephalon, but you would have no basal plates in prosencephalon. Only the alar plates would be there in the prosencephalon. Okay, so this is just a start or the introduction which you need to have before we go into details. Okay, so next one, we will start with the development of the hindbrain, which is the rhombencephalon. And the rhombencephalon has two parts. One is called the myelencephalon and the other is called the metencephalon. So the caudal part of the rhombencephalon, this whole thing is the rhombencephalon, The caudal part of the rhombencephalon is called the myelencephalon. And from the pontine flexure to the rhombencephalic isthmus, which is here. This is the rhombencephalic isthmus, and this is the pontine flexure. So from here to the rhombencephalic isthmus, this area is called the metencephalon. Yes. Okay, so what you are seeing here is this is the pontine flexure and this is the rhombencephalic isthmus. So this area between the pontine flexure and the rhombencephalic isthmus is going to give rise to the metencephalon, and this area which is below or caudal to the pontine flexure is this myelencephalon. Myelencephalon is going to give rise to the medulla. Metencephalon is going to give rise to the pons and cerebellum. So we are going to talk about first the myelencephalon, which is the medulla, and then we are going to talk about the metencephalon, which is going to give rise to the pons and cerebellum. Okay. So if you look at the myelencephalon, this is the part which we are going to talk about, and this is the medulla. And as we said, it would have the alar plates and basal plates. The basal plates in this case of medulla would be coming in the midline, while the alar plates would be lining over the lateral side. So if you see here, you have the basal plates in the midline, and you have the alar plates lying laterally. Can you see this? This is the basal plates, and these are the alar plates. Now the basal plates, in terms of the medulla, would be divided into three groups of nuclei, and we would start from the most medial ones, which are called the general somatic efferents, and in the case of the medulla, the general somatic efferents are hypoglossal nuclei, which are going to supply the muscles of the tongue. The next one, you are going to see the special visceral efferents, and these special visceral efferents supply the muscles of the pharynx and larynx, and this is basically the nucleus ambiguous which you see in the medulla. The third one is the general visceral efferent, which is basically the parasympathetic nucleus, and this parasympathetic nucleus in the case of medulla is the dorsal vagal nucleus, which supply to the heart, to the respiratory muscles, to the intestine, up to the right third of the transverse colon. Then the alar plate comes in, and this alar plate again would have sensory nuclei. And if we are going to see the one which is the most medial is the general visceral afferent column, which is the pain and temperature from the tongue and the pharynx and larynx. And then you have the special visceral afferent, which is the taste sensations from the tongue. And then you have the somatic afferents, which could be special somatic or general somatic. If it is general somatic, it's the pain and temperature from the face. If it is special somatic, it is auditory and balance. So this is how the nuclei are going to come. Basal plate is going to give rise to the motor columns, and we have talked about what are the motor columns. And the alar plate is going to give rise to the sensory columns, and we know that what are the sensory nuclei are going to come out. The white matter is, which you see in front, is basically formed by the mental and marginal layers, and these are the neurons which are coming out from the basal plate, and they are going to give rise to the white matter in the anterior part. That's why you see the pyramids lying in the anterior part, because it is the white matter which is going to be arising from the basal plate, giving rise to the pyramids which are going to be formed in the corticospinal tract.
Doctor, yes. Isn't the mental state is the same as the basal and alar? As we took before, that the mental
yes.
state it's the same as the basal and alar. Both together are called the mental layer.
He said marginal.
Right?
We are saying marginal layer.
The marginal is the outside.
Yeah, outside. The white matter.
But I mean the mental.
Mental is the same.
That's the same.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Okay. So this is again showing you the different set of nuclei, and this area, which is the white matter, is going to come from the marginal layer of the basal plate. Okay. The roof plate we have talked about the basal plate and the roof, the basal plate and the alar plate. You know the alar plate is lying laterally, basal plate is lying medially. The roof of the roof plate of the myelencephalon would have a layer of ependyma, which is covering the roof, and there would be a layer of pia mater, which would include the blood vessels. So as the blood vessels are going to increase in size, they are going to bulge into the pia mater, into the ependyma, and giving rise to the choroid plexus of the fourth ventricle. So the roof plate of the myelencephalon is going to give rise to the ependyma, and then there is a layer of pia mater which is vascularized. As it is going to bulge together, these two layers are going to give rise to the choroid plexus of the fourth ventricle. Metencephalon is going to give rise to two structures. One is the cerebellum, the other is the pons. So, in terms of pons, again, you would have the basal plate and the alar plate, and in the basal plate, again, you have the efferent set of neurons. So, you have general somatic efferent, which is the nuclei for abducent nerve, and then you have the special somatic efferent, which is the facial special visceral efferent, which is the facial muscles of facial expression, and they are supplied by the facial nerve, and similarly the muscles of mastication, which are supplied by the trigeminal nerve. And then you have, in terms of the, I think this is not working now. Okay, okay. So the next one is the general visceral efferent, which is the parasympathetic nucleus. And parasympathetic nucleus, we know that in the pons is related to the superior salivatory nucleus, and it is also related to the lacrimatory nucleus, which is going to supply the lacrimal gland and the submandibular and sublingual gland. And then you have the alar plate. Alar plate has the general visceral efferent, which is the pain and temperature to the tongue, then special visceral efferent, which is the taste sensation to the tongue, and then somatic efferent, which is the proprioception from the two-touch discrimination and vibration from the face, because there is principal sensory nucleus of the trigeminal. The marginal layer from the pontine nuclei, which you see here, they are also going to come from the alar plate, and they are going to migrate in the center. So the pontine nuclei, which you see in the basilar part of the pons, they are going to come from the alar plate. The white matter, which you see in the basilar part of the pons, is going to arise from the basilar plate. The marginal layer of the basilar plate is going to give rise to the white matter, which is going to form the middle cerebellar peduncle and connect the pons to the cerebellum. So the more important discussion in the metencephalon is the formation of the cerebellum. So the cerebellum is going to be formed. If you see this, the lateral parts of the alar plates, they are going to curl. These are the alar plates, and laterally these alar plates are going to curl. And as they are going to curl, they are going to form a lip-like structure, which is called the rhombic lip. So the alar plates, you know, they are lying laterally, and as they are going to expand posteriorly, they are going to curl, forming these lips. These are called the rhombic lips. Now, as the pons is going to give rise to the pontine flexure, these rhombic lips, which were like this, you see this, they are separated. As the pons is going to have a pontine flexure, these lips will come together and form a single plate-like structure. So this rhombic lips are going to form the cerebellar plate, because as this is initially the, can we get something to show you? I think
Paper?
yeah, paper or something which can be curled. Okay, so the rhombic lips are here at the back of the pons. As initially they are separated. You know, see that they are at the back. If you see, they are separated. If I am going to make a pontine flexure, they are going to come together. The lips are going to come together, and they are going to form a flat plate, which is called the cerebellar plate. So initially they are, when you have the neural tube, the rhombic lips are like this. Okay, and when the pontine flexure is going to go like this, these two lips are going to come together, form a flat plate, and this flat plate is called the cerebellar plate. Now this cerebellar plate is going to give rise to the two cerebellar hemisphere, and the center portion is going to give rise to the vermis. So the cerebellum is basically arising from the overhanging of the alloplates, which is going to form the rhombic lips, and as the pontine flexure is going to expand, the two lips which are, you know, at the caudal end are separated. They are going to come together, giving rise to a single plate, which is called the cerebellar plate. And this cerebellar plate is then in the center would have a groove, which is going to give rise to the vermis, and the two sides are going to give rise to the, as they are going to expand, they are going to give rise to the cerebellar hemispheres. Now, again, what you should have is that because this is going to come out from a plate, there should be neuroepithelium, then mental layer, and marginal layer. So from the neuroepithelium towards the surface of the cerebellum, the cells are going to migrate, and these cells are called the granule cells, and these are going to give rise to the epithelium of the cerebellum. So what you are seeing here, this is the neuroepithelial layer, then you have the mental layer, and then you have the marginal layer. So from the neuroepithelial cell layer, you would have the cells migrating towards the surface, and as they are going to migrate towards the surface, from the to the surface, they are going to give rise to the external granule layer. Can you see this? And this external granule layer is going to give rise to the Purkinje cell, the basket cells, which you see in the molecular layer of the cerebellum. So initially, you have the neuroepithelial cell layer, which is here, and these cells are going to come out from the neuroepithelial cells. They would migrate to the top, giving rise to the external granule layer. This external granule layer is a proliferating layer, and this external granule layer is going to give rise to the cells which you would see in the molecular layer, to the Purkinje cells, and to the granule cells which you see in the definitive cerebellar cortex. So cerebellum is developing. You only would get definitive cerebellar cortex at birth. So this is what is happening. From the neuroepithelial cells, the cells are going to migrate to the surface of the cerebellum, giving rise to the external granule layer, and this external granule layer is the one which is going to proliferate, give rise to the different types of cells which you will see in the cerebellar cortex. So you can see it here. The diagram A is taken at 8 weeks and 12 weeks of intrauterine life. You have 70 millimeter of the cerebellar cortex, which is shown here. In the diagram C, it is 13 weeks, and it is diagram D is the 15 weeks. Note the formation of the external granule layer on the surface of the cerebellar plate B and C. During later stages, cells from the external granule cells migrate inwards to mingle with the Purkinje cells and the definitive cortex of the cerebellum. The dentate nucleus is one of the deep cerebellar nuclei, which is going to be formed later, and it is also going to be formed by the migration of the cells into the white matter. Okay. So in the 6th month of development, the external granule cell layer gives rise to various cell types. That means the Purkinje cells and the granule cells. these cells migrate towards the